إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to our Thursday Halaqah, which is an open Halaqah, different from the Hadith and the Tafsir that we go through in other classes. Today, inshallah, if people have the questions, they can ask the questions towards the end. Usually what we do with the open Halaqah is we have a general topic, something that might have happened, something that needs to be shared and discussed. And today we'll keep it brief since it's been some time. But what we'll be speaking a little bit about is the explosion that happened in Beirut a little while ago. And subhanAllah, the way that the news moves so fast, it is already considered to be old news. There's so much that has happened after that. From a Muslim perspective, whenever something happens in life, as Muslims, we believe in the qadr of Allah, meaning that not only has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created things, but He has set a destiny, a fate for everything. This decree is known in Islam as qadr, and it is the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His decision to make things happen in a certain way. That is one thing. Another thing is when we look at bad things happening or things that we do not wish for them to happen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually explains to us in the Quran more than once, saying, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ, that whatever befalls you as human beings, it is what your hands has sent forth. And this is an eloquent way in Arabic to say that it is basically due to your own actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in other parts in the Quran, وَهَوَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ, that it has become apparent, this destruction, both on land and the sea. Why? Because بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ, of that which human beings have done with their own actions, their own hands. So when we see something extremely bad happening in the world, it is always a moment of sadness when we hear about lives lost. But it is also a moment for reflection. And the way that we reflect is we remember that the reason for this action or this thing, for it to have happened, it is due to our own actions. And when we speak about our own actions, it could be in two ways. Both in terms of the spiritual, meaning that when you commit a sin, there is a consequence for the sin. And also in terms of the secular way, where today they speak about things like global warming and so on. Why? Because it is through the actions of human beings for the past few decades or centuries that has added up to this. So when we look at the loss of life, in this case, it makes us sad to hear about the death of any human being, whether they be Muslim or not. We reflect in that loss and we learn from what happens in front of us. And this point is perhaps the silver lining, in the sense that when something happens for the first time, no one could have expected it or predicted what would have happened. But if something happens, you need to learn from what happened so that it doesn't happen again. And this is in accordance to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that the believer, the Muslim, is not stung from the same hole twice. The believer is not stung from the same hole twice. And this is what Islam teaches us, and which is common sense. First time you put your hand in a hole, an unknown place, you don't know what you're doing, you're trying to find out, you get bit. And then you learn from that, so that doesn't happen again. Similarly, when we look back into the stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us about the destruction of people before us, the Ad, the Thamud, and so on, all these nations, it is for the same reason. These people were destroyed because of what they had put forth themselves in terms of actions, or the lack of action, rather, in their disbelief towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were consequently destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a lesson in what happens around us, and the believer is the one that not only sees those lessons, but puts those lessons into action so that they learn and they benefit from it. One of the things that we mentioned in a previous khutbah here at the masjid concerning the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the past has always come, it is described as a sudden punishment, meaning that it comes upon them بَغْتَةً وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, suddenly without even them noticing. People in the past, when the prophets used to come to them and tell them, if you do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there will be destruction. They used to make fun of the prophets. And do you know what they used to do time and time again? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it in the Quran. وَيَسْتَعْجِلُونَكَ بِالْعَذَابِ, and they ask you to hasten the punishment. You are telling them that there's going to be a punishment, and they are saying, actually, I don't want the punishment in the Akhirah, in Jahannam. Bring the punishment to me now. That destruction that you're talking about, bring it to me right now. This is the way that they used to speak. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْلَا أَجَلٌ مُسَمًّى لَجَاءَهُمُ الْعَذَابُ. And if it hadn't been that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already fixed for them a time when that punishment comes, لَجَاءَهُمُ الْعَذَابُ, then that punishment would have come. So we do not, as Muslims, necessarily look at everything that happens around us and say this is a punishment from Allah, because everything is subjective. It depends on what is happening and how it's happening and so on. So we do not run around and say, for example, some people, they say coronavirus is a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as an example. It could be a punishment, it could be something else, it could be a reminder to the believers, it could be many things. And because it is connected to the ghaib, to the unseen, to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is better for a Muslim to not delve into those issues. But coming back to the explosion itself and the loss of life, they say for every event, everything that happens, there's usually a silver lining. There's a silver lining, meaning something of benefit, something beneficial that can be brought out of, a great tragedy or something bad that has happened. And these things show the wisdom in Allah, the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. Because when we see that there is a silver lining to the things that happen, it shows us that the intent has always been there from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that if things were just sudden, if things didn't have a purpose, then things would be very black and white. It would be this or the other. But the fact that you can find good in even the most evil or bad situations, it highlights that there is a plan behind it. Otherwise, the evil and the good would not mix in a way where there's always good in every situation. And this is highlighted by the Prophet ﷺ when he says that for the mu'min, for the believer, then their affair is always good. The affair of a believer is always going to be good. So this is some of the thoughts, the Islamic thinking when it comes to whether it is the explosion that we're talking about now or any other disaster or something bad that happens, the mindset that we should have as Muslims. So inshallah, with that short reminder, we will stop, but we will open up for any questions that brothers and sisters might have.